Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking competitive marketing theory and M&A data and turning it into a highly visual journey. We're going to cover exactly how you benchmark, grow, and eventually sell your digital business. Whether you're just starting to peek at what your competitors are up to, or you're gearing up for a massive multi-million-dollar exit, understanding this whole digital life cycle is absolutely crucial. All right, let's look at the roadmap. We've got 4 main stops today. First, why competitive analysis matters. Second, analyzing traffic and demographics. Third, the 4-point content scorecard. And finally, comparing digital business brokers. We're going to start with high-level branding, zoom right into the granular content metrics, and then see how all those numbers translate into an actual cash valuation at an M&A brokerage. Kicking things off with Section 1, why competitive analysis matters. To really get this, we have to face the stark reality of the modern digital free market. Honestly, flying blind out there is quite literally the biggest danger to your business today. As Julian Castro put it, we know that in our free market economy, some will prosper more than others. It's a great quote because it perfectly illustrates that in an era of intense globalization, you aren't just competing with the shop down the street anymore. Sure, you have access to a massive global customer base, but, so does everyone else. Figuring out exactly who your competitors are and how they operate is literally the only way to make sure you are the one prospering. You've got to know what you're up against to understand your own strengths and weaknesses. Think of this as the Usain Bolt principle. You might be a really fast runner, right? But you can't realistically improve your own speed until you realize the world record is 9.58 seconds. That number is the exact baseline you have to beat. It's the same in business. If you don't know the speed of the market leaders, you have no idea how fast you need to run just to stay in the race. We actually see this baseline in action when we look at history versus common sense. So many folks mistakenly think the only way to win is to just build a superior product. But take a look at Gary Dahl. Back in 1975, he sold 1.5 million pet rocks, literally just smooth stones from a Mexican beach, for $4 a pop. He pulled that off entirely through brilliant packaging and branding. Or look at Jollibee over in the Philippines in the 1980s. McDonald's had massive scale, but Jollibee analyzed their own strengths and leaned hard into the unique local flavor profile that Filipinos loved. They didn't try to compete on sheer size. They won on smart brand positioning. Moving on to Section 2, analyzing traffic and demographics. So now that we know why measuring your speed against the competition matters so much, let's talk about the actual tools you use to track those digital footprints. If you're trying to deconstruct a competitor's playbook, SimilarWeb is an absolute game changer of a data mining tool. It pulls exact engagement metrics, things like bounce rate and page views, plus advertising channels, all from this massive ecosystem. We're talking a panel of millions of web surfers, global ISPs, and a huge colony of web crawlers scanning the entire web. It hands you this incredibly robust look at average time on site, top referring websites, and the exact keywords that are driving their search traffic. And when we put these tool sets side by side, a really fascinating dynamic pops up. While SimilarWeb is amazing for deep keyword and paid search insights, a tool like Alexa historically offered a more budget-friendly approach, specifically tailored for tracking regional demographics and audience overlap. By digging into demographic tools like that, you might just find out you're missing out on a whole new customer segment that your competitors are already gobbling up. Okay, Section 3, the 4-point content scorecard. You know your traffic, and you know who's visiting, but how much is your content actually worth when you stack it against the rest of your industry? Let's quantify it. Here's the thing. Third-party traffic numbers are often just estimates, and with all the new digital privacy measures, they're getting a bit less reliable. So the key here is this framework designed by content strategist Deborah Carver. It's a quantitative scorecard that gives you just enough data to see how your organic content truly performs against similar sites, completely skipping all those questionable vanity metrics. Plus, it relies on free or low-cost data from established sources. Let's break down the 4 steps. Step 1 is measuring how well the general public actually knows your brand. Using tools like Google Trends or Mangools, you can see how many people actively type your exact brand name into a search bar every single month. This is basically the ultimate litmus test for public brand awareness. The more people know you, the more often they Google you. Simple as that. Step 2 is understanding your brand's existing search equity through domain authority, which is a metric developed by Moz. Now keep in mind, a link from a massive site like the New York Times transfers a remarkably high level of authority. Your target benchmark here is going to vary wildly depending on your industry. A typical SaaS website might hit a domain authority in the 40s or 50s, whereas a local news site could range from the 50s all the way up into the 90s. Just remember that domain authority is essentially a mirror of Google data, making it an awesome comparative tool. Moving to step 3, we look at linking domains. Backlinks act as a tacit seal of approval from the internet. But rather than driving yourself crazy chasing down every single obscure link in a link explorer, just focus on the comparative volume of linking domains. When you evaluate that number against your competitors, you'll see right away if they're earning their organic performance through genuinely great content and public relations. Put simply, competitors with more linking domains tend to just have stronger organic performance across the board. Finally, step 4 is establishing website size. By using a crawler tool like Screaming Frog to count your valid 200 code response pages, you can estimate your total digital footprint. The general rule of thumb here is that larger websites usually perform better in search because, well, they have more content and more authority. It gives you a crystal clear picture of how much content your competitors are actively publishing compared to you. And that brings us to section 4, comparing digital business brokers. Let's move into the final stage of the digital lifecycle and see how all this prep builds into the ultimate competitive arena, getting ready for a highly profitable exit. Once you've grown those metrics, how do you actually sell? When you're ready to sell the business, choosing the right partner is everything. There's a really clear juxtaposition between the different brokerage models out there. On one hand, you have high-volume, curated marketplaces like Empire Flippers, which use a super standardized process for deals ranging from $100,000 all the way up to over $10 million. Then there's Flippa, operating as an open marketplace, awesome for DIY sellers and smaller budgets. But on the totally opposite end of the spectrum, you have high-touch, boutique M&A advisories like Website Properties, focusing heavily on mid-market e-commerce and SaaS businesses. Commission structures vary too, usually dropping from around 10% down to 5% as your valuation scales up into the multi-millions. Now, the model you choose directly impacts your success rate. Because boutique brokerages like Website Properties enforce a highly selective, strict 80% rejection rate during their initial vetting process, they aren't just taking on whatever inventory comes their way. The result of being that picky, they maintain an incredibly high 85% closure rate for the mid-market businesses they do choose to list. This highlights exactly why having your competitive metrics and that content scorecard dialed in is absolutely vital before you ever even talk to a broker. So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to take a hard look at your own digital business. Ask yourself, if your business was listed today, how would your scorecard actually compare? Are your traffic demographics, your content authority, and your brand search volume truly ready to face the open market and command a premium valuation? Or do you maybe need to get back to benchmarking against the fastest runners in your industry? The data is out there waiting for you. Go find your baseline and start running.